So it looks like we got people tuning in from all over the world. Okay. So any of you out there currently, I'd just like to ask the question, any of you out there currently taking vitamin C? And if you are, if you were feeling under the weather or you weren't feeling so well, have you got an experience with using vitamin C where you felt better? I'd love you to share that. Give a thumbs up, give a heart, and share that. Or even hashtag VitaminCWorks. You can just put VitaminCWorks as a hashtag in there and let me know if you've got an experience with it. So let's see. I have ordered your immune boost set on March 28 and waiting for them to come in. So that's not a question. Yeah, there's a delay in some of the things that we're sending out. Right now we're sending out. We've got about a 2-week delay on some things. Do you take vitamin C all at once or divided during the day? I love that question, Connie. So if you're going to do oral vitamin C, let's talk about that for a minute. There's a couple different ways to strategically figure this out. So if you're going to use vitamin C and you're going to take it orally, one of the side effects, really the only side effect for most people, is diarrhea. I saw this in an article. Another doctor was writing that, you shouldn't take vitamin C because it causes a secondary complication of diarrhea, which might create an issue. And I just had to get a chuckle because a complication of diarrhea from using vitamin C is highly unlikely if you do it, especially if you do it right. So if you're doing oral vitamin C, depending on whether you're using pills or powder, powder is a better option for higher doses because the higher the dose gets, powder's just easier to swallow and take. You can mix it with water. But one of the things you can do with vitamin C is you can do what's called a flush. So a flush is where you take 1 to 2 teaspoons of vitamin C powder every 15 minutes. And you do this every 15 minutes until you have diarrhea. Not pleasant, not fun. But if you're trying to calibrate your vitamin C tolerance, the level of your tolerance, this is one way to do it. You take 1 to 2 teaspoons. If you're a relatively healthy person, 1 teaspoon every 15 minutes. If you're a person with chronic illness, like an autoimmune problem, you start with 2 teaspoons every 15 minutes. And again, you go at that rate until you start having a loose bowel or diarrhea. Once you get to that point, whatever that number was, so let's just say in a teaspoon of vitamin C to begin, if you're using my Detox C, 1 teaspoon equals 3 grams. So let's say you started at 2 teaspoons every 15 minutes and it took you 4 doses or 1 hour to start here. Then it took you 4 solid doses, which would be 12 grams. Again, I'm just trying to keep the numbers easy for you. Most people that are taking 2 teaspoons every 15 minutes to try to flush, that are sick, it's going to take them a couple of hours to do this. So they're usually going to be more around 24 to 30 grams. But let's say it takes you 12 grams. You multiply that by 0.75, and that's going to equal your oral tolerance daily dose, oral daily dose. So if you're trying to figure out how much should I take to be as high as I can without causing diarrhea, but to be as effective as I can to saturate my system with as much vitamin C as possible, you take 75% or 0.75 of whatever the dose it took you in grams to actually have a flush. That's the diarrhea or the flushing effect. And so that's what you would take. So for example here, let's just make this math really easy. Let's say it took you 10 grams, then 7.5 grams a day is how much you'd want to take orally, and you'd want to do that not in one dose. So that, going back to the question that was asked, do you take it all in one dose or do you split it up? You want to split it up into at least 3 divided doses. So in this case, you take about 2.5 grams, a little bit more than that, 2.5 grams. So somebody do a calculator and do the math, 7.5 divided by 3. You take that in equal installments every 4 hours. Now, there are a number of different strategies too. You might even do, instead of doing 3 divided doses, you could do a gram of vitamin C every hour for the 7 hours of your waking day. And that would be another way that you can do it. Again, it's not one way better than the other, but if you take that big bolus dose all at once, that's where it can tend to cause a lot of gastric rumbling or gurgling or gas or even diarrhea. So again, you want to, whatever that, if you're going to figure this out, you're going to figure out what your maximum tolerance is. You got to do that flush first to determine what you should be using, and then just break that down up over the course of the period of your waking day. Again, I take 5 grams a day, and I do that personally. I do that in 2 split doses. So I take 2.5 grams twice a day, in the morning and then again in the afternoon, is the way I am personally doing it. But that, again, it's different for different people. If I take much more than that, it's going to loosen me up pretty quick, just because I'm pretty saturated at this point. You'll know the thing about vitamin C is the healthier you are, the less you need. The sicker you are, generally speaking, the more of it you need. So if you've never done a flush, if you're struggling with a chronic illness, you're going to find what I just said to be true, is that you're probably going to find that your level is going to be much, much higher than somebody who's in good health and maybe can only tolerate a few grams a day before they have a loose bowel. So again, if you're trying to take vitamin C in higher doses, split the dosing up over the course of the day, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 divided doses, again, depending on what your need is and how much you're going to take. Let's see, Marie wants to know, can IV vitamin C be bought without prescription? Not in the United States. I don't know about other countries. Can one administer it to oneself? One probably could, but how you would access it and get a hold of it is beyond me. I don't know. Would it be advisable? Probably not, because if you don't know what you're doing, it's probably not a good idea to try to start learning how to IV yourself in the middle of all this. Oral vitamin C can be an effective tool as well. And some studies show that oral vitamin C, when given in burst dosing, so when you take a heavy big bolus dose and then you follow that up with a dose every hour, can be just as effective at elevating your ascorbate levels in your bloodstream as an IV version of it. Let's see, Linda wants to know, if you take about 5 grams of vitamin C a day for autoimmune issues, will the body get used to it and need more? Not necessarily. Your body doesn't get used to it. Now, I will say this, if you're going to do high doses of vitamin C, if you're taking high doses for a long period of time, so those of you who are deciding to use high doses of vitamin C during this time, don't quit cold turkey. So don't just stop taking it. If you're taking 5, 10 grams a day, don't just stop. There's something called rebound scurvy, which is when you're on high doses and you just stop without weaning yourself off, you can develop rebound scurvy. So you can get bleeding gums, and you can start developing some of the other symptoms of vitamin C deficiency. So to avoid that, if you're on high doses and you're ready to try to discontinue taking those high doses, you're going to wean off. So for example, if you're taking 5 grams a day, you want to start and do 4 grams a day for a week, and then 3 grams a day for a week, and then 2. And you see what we're doing is just weaning off of it to prevent any kind of rebound scurvy from occurring in your body. And that, again, you don't want to develop that, because that can be a problem. So the only problem with discontinuing, if you've been on high doses for a month or 2 months, maybe you've been taking it for the duration of this time, again, wean yourself off over a period of a few weeks. Don't just quit it cold turkey. Yeah, a lot of you are chiming in on how well vitamin C has worked for you. Oh, I like that. Back up. Just there you go. Paige. Hi, Dr. Osborne from Montgomery, Texas. Hi, Paige. She says, I'm currently reading your book. I love hearing that. So those of you who have a copy of No Grain, No Pain, if you want to talk about applying this right here, get you a copy of No Grain, No Pain. And if you're applying it right now through all this, you're going to do your body a big, big favor in terms of improving your overall health. Let's see. So G. Torres wants to know my thoughts on ascorbic acid versus ascorbate. I mean, there are different forms of vitamin C. I like ascorbic acid if it's buffered with minerals like calcium and magnesium and zinc. The buffering action is going to make it less acidic and less harsh on the GI tract, and it's also going to prevent some of the electrolyte disturbance that's going to come when you're doing a vitamin C flush, if you're doing the flush, because you're losing water, obviously, through bowel movements. So Paula wants to know, can you please cover vitamin C absorption? Anytime I try to defend vitamin C, people always say, no way, because we can only absorb so much. It's actually not true. Now, some studies, it depends on how much you take. If you start taking high enough amounts, you absorb it better. This is what I was talking about earlier with kind of like burst dosing. So if you're taking vitamin C as a general rule of thumb, some of the research shows that in the intestine, the small intestine, that if you take, and these numbers are not going to be 100%, I'm recalling them from memory of reading research, but so if they're not 100% accurate, don't fault me, but they're going to be pretty close. So vitamin C at 500 milligrams in a 500 milligram dose is going to be absorbed by about 80%. So I think it's 80 to 90% of that dose is absorbed in a single bolus. When you get into doses of 1,000 plus, you lose some of the absorptive rate. So it goes down to somewhere around 600 or 60% is what you absorb. So if you took 1,000 milligrams, you're going to get 600 milligrams absorbed. Whereas if you take 500 milligrams, you're going to get 80% to 90% of that 500 milligrams absorbed. So you're going to get more out of 1,000 than you would out of 500 for sure. But there is a dose response curve where the absorption goes down. Now, where that's not true is if you take a bolus dose followed by several small doses over the course of the day. Research shows that you actually can get your vitamin C levels up to the level of even as close to what IV could provide you. And some people are talking about liposomal as being better absorbed. Not really. It really is about a bolus dose, meaning a larger dose followed by smaller doses periodically throughout the day to keep your level up, and you're going to absorb it just fine. But again, if you're going by the numbers, and these research studies are mostly, these studies are done not wide spectrum in humans, or more animal-based studies. So again, we can't really look at that and say that's exactly what happens in people. But that's a basic understanding of what gets absorbed from vitamin C when you take it. I'm a big fan of the high dose, initially a couple of grams, and then pumping in a gram an hour is what I like to see. It's what we tend to see really great effects with in people in the practice. We see a lot of really good effects when they have colds and flus and other things that they're trying to knock out. Is Ester C a good form to take? Ester C is not going to be as effective. Ester C is absorbed well, but because it's buffered, it's not going to be as effective as a pure ascorbate for this type of scenario. So it's not that you can't use Ester C. I just wouldn't recommend it at this point. I actually have a product called Ultra C, which is Ester C, a form of vitamin C, and it's a esterified form. But Detox C, in my opinion, is a far better choice right now for things that are going on. I love all the feedback. How many of you are talking about how vitamin C has been a game changer for you? Let's see here. So Joanna, so this is a little bit different of a question. Are you talking about what to do if one is taking blood thinners because of a deep vein thrombosis? You can still take vitamin C. There shouldn't be any contraindication between using vitamin C and the medication if you're taking blood thinners, depending on which kind of blood thinners you're taking. But no, there's no vitamin C overlap or defective component where vitamin C is going to interfere with your medication. But you should always direct questions like that to the doc who's prescribing the blood thinners in the first place. And you know, the bigger question for me would be, why did you have a DVT? Some people have them post-surgically. Some people have them because their blood viscosity is too thick and their platelets are they aggregate too readily. And, you know, things like magnesium deficiency can increase the risk for DVT, and gluten can increase the risk for DVT. There are a lot of things that can do that. So, you know, diet and lifestyle change is what I would recommend anyone with a DVT to start investigating in terms of what they can do to improve their health outcomes. Is vitamin C hard on your kidneys if you're dehydrated? I can't recall any research that's shown that vitamin C is hard on the kidneys. There are certain people that sometimes do. It's very rare, but I see every once in a while somebody with an oxalate issue having trouble with higher doses of vitamin C. So if you have a known oxalate sensitivity and you don't tolerate oxalates very well, you might consider not using high doses of vitamin C and look more toward something like quercetin, NAC, vitamin A, vitamin D, and zinc for healthy immune support. A lot of you asking that, you know, vitamin C is water soluble. So is it excreted by the urine? Yes. But what are you trying to do by taking regular higher doses of vitamin C? You're trying to get your blood levels of vitamin C up. By getting your blood levels of vitamin C up, you are going to lose some in your urine. But that elevated level of vitamin C is going to act as a free radical scavenging agent. It's going to keep your, remember, if you don't know what a free radical is, free radicals are produced. They're produced in everyone's body. They're not unique to one person. They're not even unique to sick people. We all make free radicals, and the part of the way we offset free radicals is through antioxidants. Antioxidants kind of quench the effect of the damage that free radicals can do. One of the reasons we all age, the oxygen paradox, is because we create free radicals when we're exposed to oxygen. We basically we rust slowly over time, so to speak, and so the better our antioxidant status and capacity is, then I'll say not the slower you age, but the more gracefully you age. People with poor antioxidant status, like smokers, for example, and people that drink a lot, these individuals are ripe for vitamin C deficiency. And one of the reasons why they look older and have more wrinkles on their skin is because when you do things like drink and smoke, you can actually deplete your body of its antioxidants, and vitamin C being one of those. So don't worry about what you're going to pee out in the urine, especially not in a time like this. I would say, and again, if you're trying to support your immune system, get yourself to a meaningful level of vitamin C. Again, the best way to know what that would be to do a flush. That's the way to calibrate it uniquely to yourself. But get yourself to a meaningful level. Otherwise, then you really are just kind of, you know, in my opinion, you're just getting it. You could call it expensive urine if you want, if you're not getting a meaningful dose. Again, going back to the analogy of spitting on the forest fire, if you're not taking enough to be effective, then it doesn't do you a whole lot of good. Is sodium ascorbate better than ascorbic acid? No, I definitely prefer ascorbic acid. Let's see. Can celiac patients absorb these discussed dosages? Depends. Deb, that's a great question. The issue with celiac isn't whether or not you have celiac. Celiac absorption improves or gets better with, we'll just say, well, I don't want to confuse anyone. We'll say with a no grain, no pain diet. Why no grain, no pain? Why don't I just say gluten-free? Because gluten-free isn't enough. Most celiacs don't realize this. And if this is the first time you're hearing this and you're celiac and you don't know what the difference between a true gluten-free diet is and a traditional gluten-free diet, you definitely need to read No Grain, No Pain if you haven't. So I'll put a little star there. But if you're on the right diet, then the atrophy, because what happens is villus atrophy. So in celiac disease, you get damage to the villi, and that villus atrophy causes malabsorption, right? So that villus atrophy reduces absorption. But if you're on the right diet, okay, so if you're on the right diet, okay, then you can heal. And when you heal, it improves your absorption. So does it matter whether you have a history of celiac disease? If you're following the right diet, the villus atrophy heals and you get better absorption. And so even with this vitamin C recommendation, you're going to get good absorption out of that, unless you've done so much damage to your small intestines that you have some type of internal permanent scarring. And there's no way, there's no test that can differentiate that outside of checking your nutritional status. So having your doctor measure your nutritional status periodically, measuring your vitamin C, measuring your B vitamins and your minerals to make sure that you have adequate levels of nutrients coming through your diet, but also absorbing through your GI tract. Yeah, so this was a question that Emily's asking. I mentioned this earlier with vitamin C and oxalate sensitivity. Another one that you could use, in my opinion, it's not exactly the same mechanisms of action, but like quercetin. And quercetin hasn't been studied with COVID, but it's been what they're doing right now in computational models, research models, is they're using quercetin and they're using a high-powered AI and computer to see whether or not the structure of quercetin or the medicinal benefit of quercetin might benefit people with COVID-19. And they're finding that, yes, quercetin looks like a good candidate to test as a drug for benefit in people with COVID-19, but it hasn't actually been studied. But quercetin has been studied with multiple other forms of viral infection. And so some of the things that quercetin does, and this is why I would recommend quercetin as a supplement for vitamin C if you have an oxalate toxicity or an oxalate sensitivity. Quercetin reduces viral replication, so it prevents the virus from replicating, and it does so multiple different ways. But quercetin also reduces the viral penetration of the cell. So for the virus to actually do anything, it's got to penetrate into the cell first. And quercetin reduces viral penetration into the cell. One of the other things that quercetin does is it increases zinc absorption into the cell. We haven't really talked much about that, but zinc does these two things as well. Zinc disrupts viral replication. And so when you can get more zinc absorbed into the cell, and quercetin helps to do that, it's a win-win. So quercetin actually improves the bioavailability of zinc into your cell membrane. Good questions. Do you need to take vitamin C with rose hips or bioflavonoids? No, you don't, but you can. There's nothing wrong with taking it with those things. Rose hips are generally a source of vitamin C and bioflavonoids. Sharon wants to know what I think about Emergen-C versus the supplement itself for boosting immune system during this time. Well, I'm not a big fan of Emergen-C, and the reason why, and I'm not a big fan of a lot of vitamin C products. Most of them are GMO, corn derived. Last time I looked at that particular brand, it was, and called on it. So I don't recommend any vitamin C that's derived from genetically modified corn, especially if you're on a gluten-free diet and trying to follow that no grain, no pain, true gluten-free diet, not the traditional gluten-free diet. Many of you are asking about liposomal C, and many forms of liposomal C, same problem. Not maybe the GMO aspect. So some of them are not GMO, but they are corn. The way they produce them, there's a corn derivative, and so it's not something that I would recommend for people, again, with a gluten issue. Now, if you don't have a gluten issue and you want to use a liposomal C, just make sure it's not GMO derived. Genetically modified organism is what that stands for. Let's see, how much vitamin C is in an organic orange? Is 1 orange per day enough vitamin C? Nowhere near it. I mean, it's a good amount of vitamin C. It's under 100 milligrams of vitamin C in an orange, but it's like if you're trying to get therapeutic doses, and again, therapeutic, not daily need. If it's a daily need you're talking about, an orange is a great idea. And you should eat foods that are high in vitamin C, complete whole vitamin C. Foods like cherries and citrus and strawberries and broccoli. These are great things that you should be eating. You should be trying to eat foods that are rich in vitamin C, but we're talking here about higher doses to really, increase your circulating levels of ascorbic acid to give your immune system better fighting power. So in that regard, I don't really recommend you trying to use an orange per se to support yourself in the hospital. with COVID, because the dose is not going to be high enough, according to the research and the studies that have been done, and according to some of the doctors who are doing that work currently. Let's see here. Margie says, is that white stuff between the orange skin and segment prebiotic? I heard it has quercetin in it. Yeah, I mean, the peel and the kind of the inner layer of the peel are very nutrient dense. Most people throw the peel away because of its bitter flavor. Can you take vitamin C with leaky gut? Alex wants to know. Yes, you can absolutely take vitamin C with leaky gut. There's some studies that show in celiac patients won't heal. Their guts won't heal unless they start adding vitamin C. There was a research study that showed that they gave two groups of patients. One was they were all celiac, but one was a placebo. The other was vitamin C, and the vitamin C group actually healed, where the placebo group had limitations in their ability to heal fully. Let's see here. Love how many of you are chiming in on your positive experiences with vitamin C. What's the dose for quercetin a day? It just depends. If you're just trying to take a preventative immune support dose, about 1 gram a day, 1,000 milligrams. You can get higher than that, but about 1,000 milligrams a day is a pretty good dose for quercetin. 1 to 2 grams if you're trying to be more aggressive, and is up to 8 to 12 if you're really trying to be aggressive. When you're looking for quercetin, though, remember that one of the problems with quercetin is its absorption. We really didn't talk about that, but one of the reasons why the quercetin is already harder to absorb, but so the form of the quercetin matters, and quercetin dihydrate is probably the best absorbed. But when you add OPC and you add pomegranate juice, the research shows to quercetin, it actually improves and enhances its absorption dramatically, so it increases its effectiveness. It's one of the reasons why Ultra Q has OPC and pomegranate in them. It's to enhance the absorption of the quercetin. How can you tell when the body is not absorbing vitamin C? Jenny wants to know. You can't. I mean, the only real way to technically tell would be to measure your blood levels as you're taking it, to see if it's absorbing and elevating your blood levels to a certain extent. But there's no way to just say, okay, I took it. Am I absorbing it? There's no way. I mean, you're generally vitamin C. You take it. If you're taking it to the level that it's causing diarrhea, then you're going to minimize your ability to absorb it because you're having diarrhea. But beyond that, there's no like home-based way to tell. Veronica says, what would you recommend as antiviral? There are a lot of things that have antiviral properties, in the natural realm. Elderberry and andrographis are two that work really well. Lysine has antiviral properties, but if you're talking specifically COVID-19, we don't know. We only have, again, there's limited research, so we don't know. Outside of knowing that vitamin C has been very helpful in the clinical setting, we don't. This is why I keep talking about vitamin C, because it's the only thing we really have in our arsenal that we have hard data on that we know works in people with COVID. Vitamin C from cherries and camu. Yeah, I mean, these are all good sources of vitamin C, no doubt about it. Again, you should be striving every day to get these nutrients, all of them, from food, not just supplementing. Remember that supplementation is like pulling out the big guns when you're trying to really support yourself in a much stronger way. And so when we see the need, in my experience, when we see the need for supplementation is when people are under undue stress, or when people are already sick. And supplementation can be very beneficial to help support those people and dig them out of a hole. And right now, what everybody's going through right now, I mentioned this earlier, is that human connection loss, right? So everybody's shelter in place, ship, I'll call it. And this is like mega stress. And a lot of you are worried about whether or not you're going to get sick, or worried about your loved ones getting sick. And that stress, what do we know about stress? Stress depletes Nutrients. We've known that. We know that stress not only depletes nutrients, but stress causes your body to use more nutrients up. So it depletes it, but also, so it depletes it in one way through excretion, but also depletes it in utilization. So the utilization requirements go up with stress. So you know, when you're under a large degree of stress, this is, you know, this can be this, again, this staying home business is stressing a lot of people out. This whether or not you're going to get sick is stressing a lot of people out, which is causing a lot of nutritional depletion and a lot of individuals, which is why diet and lifestyle, particularly diet, is so important. So many of you, I know the restaurant owners and industry is going to hate me for saying this, but so many of you are still ordering takeout and junk food and garbage. And that, you know, regardless of whether the restaurant industry is in trouble financially, feeding your body garbage and not feeding your body unreal food or not real food is a bad idea. And I don't care if that offends somebody. That's a bad idea. If you're trying to really help yourself, the best thing you can do is start with your diet first, eating real food, non-processed food that's nutrient dense. It's the number one place you can start for good health. Supplements are in addition to, they're a supplemental to that, but you can't eat like crap and expect that supplements are going to overcome your poor diet. It's the biggest mistake people make. They think that they're going to somehow take a pill and that's somehow going to magically, you know, make that pizza, you know, that's full of added gluten and full of genetically modified cheese and other garbage. It's going to somehow offset the damage that fake food is going to cause, and how that fake food is going to deteriorate their bodies and their immune systems over time. You can't supplement out of a bad diet, just like you can't out-exercise a bad diet. I mean, your body needs you to be consistent with the food that you're eating so that it can heal and repair itself, and diet is critical for that. Sleep is critical for that. Those things are non-negotiable. So diet, don't think of the diet and lifestyle as the supplement. Think of the supplement as the add-on to the diet and the lifestyle. Okay. 3 to 5 grams down. Like hearing that. Sue says 3 to 5 grams a day in 1 gram doses controls my psoriasis arthritis using buffered and no diarrhea. Love that. Love those testimonials for people in the vitamin C and the way that it helps you. Let's see, I answered a lot of those already. There's Sarah, that's a question. Why don't doctors or the FDA admit that there's gluten in other grains like corn and rice? If I mention zein, they don't know what I'm talking about. Well, it's a good question. I can't speak for the FDA, and I certainly can't speak for other doctors. So it's a good question. I've asked that question a number of times, and many other doctors do agree with the fact that all grains contain gluten. But unfortunately, we have a food industry that we'll just say feeds and funds some of the research facilities around the world, and it's going to be hard to get them to admit that when some of their money's coming from some of that industry kickback. Are amino acids and protein as important or more important for vitamin C than immunity? They're important for different reasons. They're both important. It's not one or the other. It's both. It's like saying, is my right hand important or is my left hand important? They're both equally important. Remember, protein's an essential nutrient. Amino acids are essential, just like vitamin C is essential. Your body can't function without them. If you're looking kind of for a quantity of protein to eat, you can get protein from your diet, and you can get high amounts of protein from your diet, but it's harder to get those higher amounts of vitamin C from your diet if you're trying to get 5 gram plus doses in the course of the day. So again, the average person, if you want to try to figure out your protein needs right now, what I would suggest is 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. And that dose should keep you pretty stable. Now, if you're working out aggressively, if you're you might need more than that, but I wouldn't go less than that right now in this time. Nancy wants to know, for stress, should we take some B vitamins? If you're on a really solid multivitamin, Nancy, then you're getting a B vitamin complex with that. If you're on a good brand, I'm biased, of course. I've got a couple different brands I've designed. One, my favorite, is Ultra Nutrients, in terms of its B vitamin content to support, extra B vitamins during a high stress period. Let's see here. Mary's cramping with a vitamin C complex. So it depends on what you bought, Mary. You might have bought a vitamin C complex that had contaminated ingredients or was derived from corn. So that I would start first with the supplement. If it's causing you cramps, either with vitamin C, it's either one, you took too much too soon. And some people, we're talking about higher doses here tonight. Some people, they don't, even smaller doses is enough to create it. They don't need super high doses. And if you're one of those people, pay attention. But if vitamin C is causing you cramps at low doses, in my experience, it's either because you don't need more vitamin C, you don't need that much more, or number two, you're taking a vitamin C that has potential contaminants in it that might be irritating your stomach as well. I like that. Nancy says, I got vitamin C for my kids for Easter. Yeah, put the vitamin C in an Easter egg instead of the chocolate candy or the jelly beans. Let's see here. No, vitamin C is not high oxalate. So some of you are asking about it, whether or not Detox C has high oxalate. No, it doesn't have oxalate in it, but it can create irritation for people who have oxalate sensitivity. And I'm going to do a whole show on oxalate. Once we get through this whole thing, it's one of the biggest topics I get a request for. So I'm going to do a whole show on oxalates. So just be patient with me. Okay. I love hearing that, Matthew. So Matthew says, my mother-in-law just tried NAC, NAC, for the first time. She has asthma and lung issues. She already has felt a benefit. Is this typical? Yes, it's very typical. Now, by law, I have to say these results aren't typical. You hear the commercials, you see those things, but no, NAC, it's very typical. Even if you're getting a therapeutic enough of a dose, it's very, very typical. NAC, remember, NAC is an FDA approved. It's FDA approved as a mucolytic, so it's actually used to break up mucus. And one of the issues with asthma is mucus formation in the lung tissue. So yeah, it's not atypical to see that it benefits people with that type of problem. Okay, it looks like we have run out of time, but not run out of questions. The questions just keep coming, and that's great. Keep sending them in. Look, if you've got a question or show topic idea that you'd like to see me cover, once we get past COVID and into the hopefully the real world again, we'd love to start curating those topics for you to make sure that you can get educated about things that are near and dear to your heart and to your health. I'd love it if those of you would drop me a hashtag tonight. If you're new to Dr. Osborne Show, our goal is to help reach and help save 100 million lives. So if you could hashtag that out for me, that would be fantastic. It's no spaces, save 100 million lives with a hashtag in front of it. And if you haven't already, make sure you come visit me at glutenfreesociety.org. The more we go on with this, the more censorship my videos are getting. And so if you really want to stay in touch and stay in tune with me, come visit me at glutenfreesociety.org and make sure you sign up for our newsletter, and that way we can continue to communicate with you, even if the powers that be decide they don't like what we're saying, that our information is too life-changing for people and they're trying to suppress it. It's already been happening. It's happened to a lot of my colleagues. So if you really want to stay in touch with me, come visit me at glutenfreesociety.org and sign up for our newsletter. But as always, subscribe as well on our YouTube channel and hit that like button on Facebook and come join us over there as well, as long as we're still able to be there. Thanks for spending your Monday evening with me. I hope you and your families are staying safe and sane during this time, this unprecedented time in our history. And I will see you next Monday night for another episode of Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain. Have a great week. Hey, if you've got a functional medicine or health question that you'd like me to answer for you, make sure you send me an email, glutenology@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to create a video answer just for you. Have a great day.